Al Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Bava Daf Kuf Samich Bet Amud Aleph 162. Today is a very, very long daf, so I need everyone to put on their seatbelts, please. Yeah. Yesterday, if you remember, we spoke about, right? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Kol machakim kulam. Anytime that you're going to have a machak, that you erase something, and that it's going to be kosher, you have to write at the end of the shtar. You have to do what's called kiyum shtarot. A kiyum. What does it mean kiyum? V'den kiyumeon. This is a kiyum. So you're going to say tevat ploni sharamachak sharir v'kayam. Yeah, meaning you have to say this word is on the machak. Meaning you have to say there's a machak there. There's something that was erased. Because if not, no, you're erasing it up here in line 12. So I'm going to write down the word, whatever it is, in line 15 or whatever the line is. Obviously, getim is different than a regular shtar. A get only has 12 lines, right? But let's say it's a ketubah, or let's say it's going to be a document. So whichever the case is, you're going to write down these words on this line is alamachak is good, and then they sign it. So that's called you're being mekayem the machak. Okay. Says the Gemara, the last line has to come and be misakem the entire document. And the last line, you have to tell me what the document is talking about. My tama, what's the reasoning? Yeah. Amar Rav Amram says Rav Amram, because you're not going to learn from the last line. Because since the edim cannot be somech, right? So close to the shtar on the right, so therefore there's always going to be a little bit of a revach. They don't learn from it, so therefore you're not going to learn anything new. So you purposely write something which is keilu the synopsis. So you didn't actually write anything new. There's nothing new. You can't learn from the last line. Okay, and this is where we're starting from today. So Amal Rav Nachman le Rav Amram says of Nachman to Rav Amram menalechaha. How do you know that you don't learn from the last line? He says, Elmaleh, he says, the Tanya we learned in the Braita, Yichik et ha'edim shne shitim min haktav, pasul. By the way, this is halakha l'maaseh. If you're going to have a distance between the edim, 2 lines from the ktav, it's going to be pasul. Meaning, you have the ktav, and after the ktav, right, they only started signing here, which means it's too far down. So if it's going to be too far down that you have 2 lines in between, it's going to be pasul. If it's only going to be 1 line, it's going to be kasher. Now, the Gemara is going to take 1 second. So the Gemara is going to ask, why? One more time. You've got a document, and then all of a sudden, you're going to have, right, a space. So if you have enough of 2 spaces, pasul. 1 space, meaning for 1 line, kasher. Says the Gemara, maishna shne shitin, right? Why is it going to be 2 shitim that it's going to be pasul? Dilma mizayef katav. Because maybe you're going to fill in a line. Right? Imagine, you guys signed over here. So I'm going to come and I'm going to fill in a line. So he says, 1 second, shikhta chanami. The same thing with 1 line. Meaning, just like if you have space of 2 lines, you could fill in whatever you want. Also, if you have a space of 1 line, you can fill in whatever you want. So why is it going to be kosher? But rather, it's going to teach you that you don't learn anything from the shita acharona. Shema mina, that's what we learn. Meaning like this. Even if it's going to be 1 line, I don't care. You know why? I can't learn anything. Meaning, if in the last line, right? Imagine right now this is a debt document. And all of a sudden, the last line, I'm going to come and I'm going to start writing down a whole bunch of crazy things. Anyway, I don't learn from it. So you can write whatever you want, and I don't really care. You know why? Because we don't learn from the last line. Because since it's so difficult for the edim to sign immediately right after the document, they always said you could always leave 1 line empty, and then you could sign. Meaning you're not going to sign mamash. They just finish a document right there. You're going to sign. It's too close. So therefore, what happens? That last line, we don't learn from it. So therefore, what do you do in the last line? The last line is always going to be parve. Either synopsis, what you learn, or what, and by the way, you should know, until today, it's always like that. So, for example, in a get, what does it says? Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. Very, very, very long. Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. On a ketubah, ve'akol sharir uvarir ve'emev yasiv v'nachom ve'kayam, or whatever. You know, like those words. And many times they'll spread it out. Why is that at the end? Because you're not going to learn anything from it. It's like the signature. It's like the seal. So therefore, what he's trying to say is is that what we're trying to say is like this. How do you know that you don't learn Mishita Charona? Because we just said that if you're going to sign in a document, if there's going to be two shitin, it's going to be pasul. Why two shitin? Two lines is going to be pasul. Because the first line, I could add whatever I want, and then it's going to be a problem. And only the last line, I'm going to come and I'm going to write down a synopsis. So when you have two lines, it's pasul. Because the first line I could add, and then that's going to make it pasul. When it's only going to be one line, it's going to be kasher. Why is it only going to be kasher? Because anyway, even whatever you would add, I don't care what you add, because it's not going to make any difference. Meaning, I would never learn on the last line, right? I just don't learn from it. So therefore, because of that, that's what the Gemara says is that we're learning from here. We do not learn from the last line, and therefore, the last line is always going to be in Yanosh Shtar. It's going to go back to repeat and to yachzor min Yanosh Shtar. It's just going to come. You're not going to write nothing new. Meaning no new conditions, no new nada. It's just a chazara. Yeah, just a chazara. Okay? Yes, doctor. So one more time. Kuf samich bet amubet, 162b. The Gemara is now going to ask the following question. Remember, whenever the Gemara brings down a word on the end of the line on the page before, it's the first word of the next line, which means you turn the page and that's the first word. So therefore, the first word of Kuf samich bet amud bet says, Ibaya lehu. Ibaya lehu. Remember, bai, bet ayin yud, always is either a question or you want or you need something. So bayit of Papa, right? He's asking a question. Or bayit of Papa needs something. So it's to want, need, or ask. So ibaya lehu, so they're going to ask the following question. Shita umech samai. We just spoke about the concept of one line and two lines. Two lines is pasul. One line is kasher. What about one and a half? Yeah. So tashema, we're going to try to bring a proof. Remember, tashema literally means come and listen, but it means that we're trying to bring a proof to one way or the other. So tashema, we're going to try to bring a proof. Pasul. Hashita make a deal. You told me if you're going to distance it two lines, it's pasul. So mashma, one and a half is kasher. So says the Gemara, okay, but let's see the seifa. The seifa says, shita achat is kasher, mashma, that if it's one and a half, it's going to be pasul. So therefore, you cannot bring a proof from the reisha or the seifa, because each one I can bring you the opposite proof. So therefore, you can bring a proof from this mishnah. So my havila. So what's the maskana? So Tashma, we're going to try to bring a proof. Tanya we learned on a braita. Pasul. If you distance it two lines from the ktav, pasul. Pachot mikan kasher. When it says pachot mikan, it's kasher. So the fact that he said pachot mikan kasher and it says befurash, less than this is kasher, it comes out that even 1.5 or 1.75 or 1.25, doesn't matter what it is, it's always going to be kosher. Yeah? Fine. So the Gemara now is going to continue with that braita. Hayu arba'a v'chamisha edim chatumim al shtar v'nintzai chamehen karov pasul yitkayim edu b'shar. What happens right now if you're going to have 4 or 5 witnesses signed on the document, and what happens is you found one of them which is going to be a karov or a pasul, right? That means one of them is a family member or going to be right a pasul, somebody that's pasul edut. So he comes and he says, right, what happens? Yitkayim edut, right, b'shtar. He says. Right? He says it's Kayim Adud Bishtar, right? Bishar with all the other witnesses. Yeah? So he comes and he says, Messiah, so that's a proof to Chizkia. The Amar Chizkia says Chizkia, Umil Ahu. Yeah? Umil Shh. Do you have the off button? Yeah? He says, Messiah le Chizkia, Damar Chizkia. Chizkia comes and he says, Umil Ahu Bekrovim Kasher. I could come and I could fill up the entire document with family members, right? It's going to be kosher. Ve'al titmana, don't ask the question. Shareavir sukkah posel b'shlosha v'schach pasul posel be'arba'a. He says, don't ask the question, how could you do such a thing? Because we do find that when you have avid in the sukkah, it's going to be posel with shlosha tfachim. But schach pasul is going to be posel with 4 tfachim. So it comes out that if you filled up the avid of the schach with schach pasul, it's going to be kosher even more than empty. Meaning like this: what's better, empty space or somebody pasul? And the answer is it's better somebody pasul than empty space. Because if I have a sukkah and all of a sudden in the middle of the sukkah I've got 3 tfachim, it's 24 centimeters, right, of schach, which is empty, avir. Avir. Yeah, avir. Avir means air. There's nothing there. So it's posel the sukkah, right? 24 centimeters. But if I put, right, if I put the, if I put schach pasul, so then it's going to be only with 4 tfachim. So I get an extra tefach. So you see from here, meaning that I'm able to put until 4 tfachim, right? Which means like this, right? When we're coming, we're talking about, right? When we're coming, we're talking about, right, a sukkah. So now again, obviously, if you have other rules, so for example, dofen akuma or other things like that, so therefore maybe the sides would be kosher. But let's say I've got a very small sukkah, and mamash smack in the middle of the sukkah, I've got empty airspace. So it's going to be posel, the entire sukkah. Why? 3 tvachim is already enough to be posel. What happens if it's not empty space? It's not empty, but it's schach pasul. So I came and I put whatever it is that's schach pasul. Yeah? Barzel, I put metal, I put whatever it is. Back in the middle. Even that's called schach pasul. It's called schach, but it's schach pasul. So therefore, he says 4 tfachim is going to be posel. Less than 4 tfachim is going to be kosher. So you see from here that empty is worse than pasul, than making it that if it's going to be filled with something pasul. Exactly. That means adif sheyeh mashu, afilu if it's a pasul, milo liot klum. Right? Yes.